Hey, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Scenic Route, where we tackle life's chaos with a side of potty humor and zero bullshit. I'm your host, Jen, and today we're going where it hurts again. And we're just looking at how the world keeps on feeling more bunkers day by day, and how our brains are just kind of like out of function, and what we can do about it, and why this is all really, really important. So, let's dive in. You know that feeling when you open your phone in the morning and immediately you want to like close it again? Although you know you should not look at your phone the first minutes while after waking up, blah blah blah, right? But hey, when your group chat is blowing up with five different crises, and you don't dare to go on social media, and it just feels all very much overwhelming. And this doesn't have anything to do with bad luck or poor time management, or you being like a special soft snowflake, right? It's really crucial to know that this feeling of overwhelm, it isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature, right? The chaos flooding your feed isn't random at all, but it's part of a documented pattern that political economists and media scholars have been tracking for years. And this is also why Naomi Klein's research just hits different. She noticed something that's going on that's going to change how you see every crisis that comes across your screen. So, like she's a Canadian political economist and known for her shock doctrine theory that illuminates a powerful pattern in modern governance, right? The strategic use of multiple rapid fire policy changes and executive actions to overwhelm public discourse and democratic processes. So, when dozens of major policy shifts are implemented simultaneously or in a really short period of time, even the most engaged citizens and institutions struggle to analyze and respond effectively. So, the shock doctrine isn't about chaotic governance, it's about using chaos as a tool to deliberately create even more chaos. So, each wave of changes serves kind of like as a smokescreen for the next and the next and the next, creating a perpetual state of cognitive overload. Klein's research shows how the strategy operates on three different levels. First, like there's a psychological component. Our brains have limited capacity for processing complex information. When we're hit with multiple significant changes at once, we tend to experience like a sort of cognitive paralysis. It's not a lack of empathy or that we stop caring. Like our minds just really literally cannot process everything at once all the time with the depth that is required or needed. Second, there is an institutional breakdown. Democratic systems are designed for deliberate, thoughtful consideration of changes. Legislative bodies, courts, media outlets, civil societies organizations all need time to analyze, debate, and respond to major policy shifts. When they're flooded with multiple simultaneously changes, these institutional safeguards start to buckle. And here it's where it gets even more interesting and scary too, right? The third level is about power dynamics. The shock doctrine exploits what Klein calls the crisis opportunity. During periods of upheaval, whether those are natural disasters like we saw with Katrina in the US, economic crashes, or political turmoil, as we're seeing right now in the first days of the Trump presidency, radical changes can be pushed through with minimal resistance. Why? Because while the public is still reeling from the initial shock, those in power are already executing well prepared plans, right? When traditional checks and balances are overwhelmed, when media coverage is all over the place, when public attention is fractured across multiple crises and multiple interests, while being deeply divided anyway, that's when the most consequential changes often slip through. The shock isn't about creating confusion, it's about exploiting that confusion to reshape society in ways that might face fierce resistance under normal circumstances. So think about it, right? When you're processing one major change, your brain's like, I got this, babe. But when 20 different massive changes hit you at once, I mean, your mental CPU crashes. There's no other way. And that's exactly the point. It's like when your toddler creates chaos in one room so they can go and sneak cookies from the kitchen cupboard, right? Except we're talking policies that affect millions of lives and not like delicious cookies. Although we should also talk about cookies. But like Klein spotted this pattern everywhere. She, from political upheavals to economic crisis, the playbook always the same: create enough chaos that people can't process what's really going down. And the scariest part, she showed it works. It's the playbook. It works. Because while we're all trying to figure out what just happened with issue A, that we already have issue B, truth said, are sliding through the back door. Smoke screen again. So this is also where it gets really interesting. Back in the 60s, I'm going to hit you now with another sociological theory bit because we need to know this. This is the backbone of also media studies. Renowned media theorist Marshall McLuhan predicted our current kind of like social media nightmare with very unsettling accuracy. He said one of his like hypotheses was and theories were when humans face information overload, we don't rise to the occasion. We shut down, right? And even if we think to how it goes back to like our mental CPU shutting down, right? I mean, when I grab my phone in the morning and I check and I have like three global crises, I have, I don't know, three domestic emergencies, and I don't know, my mom's sending me weird shit I don't want to see. Then I have some friend who has something going on in their life, and then I don't know, maybe my astrology app tells me it's Mercury retrograde or whatever. Um, my brain is like, no, what? No, what? No fucking way. And I even didn't even have my first coffee. And this like nope is what McLuhan calls the numbness effect. When everything screams for attention, we end up hearing nothing at all. Um, so we really need to be like, okay, but how do we get on from this? There's one more bit that's important. Um, and that's agenda setting theory. It helps us really to understand how media shapes not just what we think, but what how we think about it. Traditionally, the media's ability to focus public attention has been a cornerstone of democratic discourse. When journalists collectively shine a spotlight on an issue, it tends to rise to the top of public consciousness and often leads to policy action. But here is where it kind of like gets muddy and messy in our current landscape. When multiple major policies and crises compete for attention simultaneously, it fragments public discourse. And it's not like as the public wouldn't be fragmented enough already as is. Um, the traditional agenda setting function of media starts to break down. Instead of focused spotlight, we get kind of like, like this very awful disco strobe light effect flashing from one crisis to the another, and your brain is completely going nuts. And there's never enough light to illuminate a single issue. And the implications are significant. There's a depth problem, once and foremost, right? When newsrooms are forced to cover dozens of major stories, they default to service level coverage, right? I mean, if I have 20, a gazillion tasks on my to do list, I tend to do the bare minimum. And that usually, I don't know, that works on some days when you do a corporate job, right? But when you're talking complex policies that deserve deep analysis and they just get reduced to headlines and sound bites, we have a problem when that's supposed to be the backbone of political discourse, right? The what, the policy change itself gets covered, but the crucial how and why, they often get lost. We see also the emergence of what scholars call competing crisis narratives. When everything's present as urgent, the public loses the ability to distinguish between levels of importance. A diplomatic crisis gets the same weight as a celebrity scandal, which gets the same attention as a major climate policy shift. Does that also do with our fucked up like celebrity culture? But that's another episode. But And the most see what this does to democratic oversight is fun is really scary. Traditional watchdog journalism also requires time and resources to investigate, verify, and explain complex issues. And if they don't have the time, they need more resources. They need more heads to do this. But real investigative journalism is expensive, right? And newsrooms have been reduced, staff has been laid off. It's always cost, cost, cost. Um, Most biggest newsletters are already in the hands of billionaires anyway. That's another layer of fucked up. But they're not making available enough resources, monetary or non-monetary, to work to sort of um soften all of this and kind of like fall back on and be like, okay, there's a lot of going on. We actually have more people to cover things. And yeah, so this is where the whole power dynamic also really gets especially dark, right? As traditional media outlets struggle financially, we there are these millionaire buyouts of major news organizations. So when the watchdogs are owned by the very powers they're supposed to be watching, how fierce can their bite be? So all of this is kind of like the perfect storm, right? Where concentrated wealth shapes our information landscape, while an overwhelming news cycle makes it harder to follow the money and power. It's not about just about being overwhelmed by information. It's about who benefits from that overwhelm. It's always who benefits from what's going on. And the end result, a kind of democratic paralysis by information overload. Like, demo- like I don't know, if it would be a computer software, democratic.x would not be executing. The public sphere becomes so saturated with competing narratives and crises that meaningful civic engagement becomes just so increasingly difficult. And this isn't just about being overwhelmed. It's about systematic weakening of our ability to engage in informed democratic discourse. It's a playbook. It has been proven time and time again. So I don't want to give you any kind of mental CPU overload right now. So we're keeping it simple with there are some I don't know, I don't want to say good news, but there are things we can do um to sort of combat this on a personal level, right? Because we first need to take care of ourselves on a personal level and then we can spread it out. Strategy 1, the power of 2. I really do recommend pick one or two issues that you personally care deeply about. Just two. Let the rest go. Stay in your lane. For me, personally, that's feminine, like intersectional feminist issues, like access to women's health care, including abortions. Um, this is the whole kind of like class discourse, um, and like anything that has to do with capitalism critique, which basically is everything. But like, those are my two. And like, do I not care about the climate? I very much do. But this is not something where I have the greatest passion for, right? I was the times I was marching on the street were for feminist issues like Women's Day and not for Fridays for Future. And that's okay, right? Pick two. Pick the two you're most passionate about because that's where you will have the most stamina. Because this is not a race, this is a marathon. And strategy two could be like build your squad. This could be finding a group of friends that all follow the same issue, who care deeply about the same issue. Maybe like start like a book club for saving democracy, um, and like do talk about things that you've seen or share things you've seen related to your core issue in a chat. This could also mean really find the scholars or journalists that cover your topic of interest and you know they cover it well, and use what they aggregate from all the vast resources, um and like help and to help you kind of like figuring things out. And I think that not strategy 3 is the most crucial of all. It's kind of like the 48-hour rule. I'd say unless something is literally on fire, wait 2 days before reacting to breaking news. The most urgent news is hardly ever as urgent. And this is, of course, something that works if you're not a journalist yourself. Then it might not be. But again, if we're always reacting immediately to what's going on, y- you will never, you will have a hard time leaving that cycle of reacting to things. So I think it's time again for bell hooks truth that illuminated powerfully that if the world is designed to exhaust and fragment us, caring for our mental well-being isn't just self-preservation, it's a radical political act. um, Hooks taught us that love, including self-love and community care, are our most powerful tools of resistance. Mm. So I think she said, when we choose to love, we choose to move against fear, against alienation and separation. So taking care of your mental peace isn't selfish. Um, it's revolutionary. And to rest is resistance, right? When systems of power want you scared, exhausted, and disconnected from your own truth, choosing focus and rest becomes really an act of rebellion. And we need space. Our minds need space to process and see what our truth is. So your rest is resistance. Your boundaries are brave, and your choice to stay grounded and connected to yourself and to your community, that's the foundation of any meaningful change. So if this episode hit home, um, have a look at my treehouse. There are other resources out there for to support you. Um, like come online on social media or on the podcast notes. Drop your comments. Let me know how this sits with you. Tag me, email me. Um, Always happy to hear from you. And yeah, until next week, new episode will be out next Tuesday. And yeah, remember, we need our stamina. This is a marathon. The road might be bumpy on the scenic route, but the views are worth it. So see you again on the scenic route.